Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day. Jennifer is grateful for the opportunity to educate, empower, and inspire you with powerful conversations, insights, and new viewpoints. Here's your host, Jennifer J. Hammond.
This is Jennifer, and I'm so excited. I have a wonderful guest for you today, and we are going to talk about rental real estate. I love rental real estate. So my guest today is Edward O'Daniel. He is a real estate investor. He's a real estate broker. He's also a coach. He likes to help others. Yay! We love people who help. And he's also a certified apartment manager in the St. Louis area. Yay, St. Louis. He enjoys spending time, of course, with his family. He loves trying to play golf. And I say I try to play golf too. And also he volunteers in his community and his church. So he has been Edward has successfully managed his own rental property since 2005. But it wasn't until 2014 that he created St. Louis Property Management to start managing other real estate investors' properties. And over the past 10 years, he has enjoyed coaching real estate students with wholesaling, rehabbing, and rentals. And he gets very excited when he sees the light bulb go off and students understand. So I'm so excited to have you, Edward. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Jennifer. Glad to be here.
I'm so excited. I want to talk about the first thing that I think is always so interesting is why real estate? Why did you tell us a little bit about your story? Why did you get into real estate investing?
Well, this was sort of back 15 or so years ago, 15, 16 years ago, when I was still working in the IT community. Mm-hmm. So my career is in IT. I have a whole other career doing that I excelled at very well. But kind of like other people, you kind of have those golden handcuffs. But I sat back and one day read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it actually just kind of shifted and changed my whole thinking, my whole way of just looking at financial future. I started to have children around that time. My children were just a couple of years old. And I wanted to look at building a legacy, building something more than what my parents' generation provided for me. So I'm like, I need to start now. I need to start doing this. And that's when I started getting into real estate, learning more about real estate. I think we bought our first rental, not in a very good way. We didn't do a good job on our first rental purchase because I didn't have somebody like me to teach me what not to do or what to do, better yet, or what not to do. But I didn't have that kind of person. So that's when I started learning and started doing real estate part-time. And then eventually, a few years later, just kind of broke out and did real estate full-time.
So I love I love the rainbows and I always want to find our yay in every day. But let's start with the storms before we find the rainbows. Can you talk about maybe one of the things that you did wrong when you were buying your very first rental property?
Just one?
Okay, let's do three. How about three? Can you do three?
Okay. Well, number one, I didn't really have a good understanding of what a return should be on a rental property. So all I knew is I had a big chunk of money because working in IT, I was making a lot of money. We were doing well. Everything was good. But then we have this money. And it's like, well, talk to my wife and said, how should we invest this? And I'm like, I'd really like to try rental property. Well, again, nobody was there like myself, like I am now for other people to try to help them understand if that's a good deal or bad deal. And keep in mind, I think our first property we bought 2005, maybe, in that arena. And if you remember the market was smoking hot in 2005 and 2006, not necessarily the best time to buy a rental property. So we bought it off the MLS. We bought it too high. We paid too much money. We didn't put the money into it to kind of get the maintenance fixed on it, just all that kind of stuff. And I didn't know about tenant screening. So that's the first thing is I didn't buy it right. So right now, I'm not saying we did awful on it, but you could have done a lot better. You should have been able to do a lot better if you would have just known a few basic principles. But then we had to deal with tenant screening. I didn't know how to do that, didn't know how to pick somebody, how to screen somebody, what to look for, what not to look for. So you end up picking the wrong people. It becomes a nightmare. Then it costs you more money to kind of get stuff fixed. that whole process just kind of led me to believe it is so easy to stop that from happening. If somebody would have just sat down with you for an hour, or you watched a YouTube video or a couple of whatever, but it would have been so easy to prevent that if you would have just known a few basic principles. And I'm just like, why don't I do that? Because that's kind of what led me to wanting to start a property management company, is because these other clients, that's why they really love being a client of ours. It's just that we treat them right. We give them financial transparency. We do everything a property manager or landlord should do to retain tenants, choose good people. And I just want to share that with people. I just want to say, here's how you do it. But unfortunately, you can't take all of that in an hour. That's something that takes a little bit of time to learn all the aspects of it. But anyway, hopefully that should give you 1, 2, or 3 or something like that.
Yeah, I think that was the 3. I think
buying my first rental property.
Well, and I was going to say, one of the things that I'm saying, I keep calling you a real estate investor and a coach and such. But the other thing that I wanted to highlight is that you're an entrepreneur. And, by all the things that you do, one of the things that I love about entrepreneurs as well as investors that I've met, and I am one myself as well, over the years, I've learned this, is that we need to love that problem. In other words, when you see a problem, instead of getting upset or angry, and we might have to go through that emotional roller coaster first, but once we've passed the emotional side of it, love that problem, because guess what? There's a business in it.
Yes, there is.
Just like property management. Yay!
And it is. I mean, there's definite problems, but I'm sort of an entrepreneurial late bloomer. So I kind of bloomed in my entrepreneurship a little bit later on. So if you're, a little bit older, don't give up. Okay. It's possible. You can start an entrepreneur anytime you want. You just have to want to do it. You have to be willing to get out there and do what it takes.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I know that we have many listeners who tune in who are, a little bit older and are thinking, well, what do I do with my next phase of life? And obviously, year 2020 had a whole lot of changes in it. And sometimes they were changes that made people feel very like they didn't know what to do or what was possible, because they're like, how do you teach this old dog some new tricks? And am I going to be successful learning new things? And I don't want to be forced into learning new things. But I've had a lot of people, even I got an email today that just really stole my heart from this veteran who was saying to me that he's completely disabled, but his mind is good. And he said, I want to be a real estate investor. Can I do it? And it melted my heart. I said, yes, you can do it. And I know that you are also really passionate about being a coach. What would you share with someone who is first time out there and they're looking at real estate investing and they're thinking about being a landlord, but they're not sure if they want to do it?
Well, I guess ultimately find somebody that can really honestly tell you what's going to be up front, that can kind of give you the story of what is it going to take to buy it? What type of things are you going to get into? Is this something that you want to manage yourself? Or is this something that you want to design to have managed professionally by someone else? Just have an understanding of the process, because what I find is that most people aren't afraid of something if they know all the steps involved. And we spoke earlier, it's like, watching a scary movie and somebody giving away the ending or giving away, hey, this guy's going to jump out of the corner with the knife or an axe over here. Watch this. Well, then when it happens, it's not scary to you because you already know it's going to happen. So if you have a blueprint or an understanding of how to buy a rental property and all the steps involved, then you just feel a lot more confident in the fact that you know what's going to happen next. And you know from the beginning to the end what the process is. So when you get at the end, you're going to have a rental property. It's going to be making you money and you're in a much better shape. So that's what I would say.
And one of the things that I also, in your background, you are also a veteran. And I know that as a veteran, you have very special skills, because you are trained to, again, work with checklists. You're trained in a way that I think a lot of us out here as almost I'm going to say hapless entrepreneurs and real estate investors, sometimes we just don't have that same discipline and skill that I think often military training teaches you. Would you say that you have some of those skills that have translated well into being a real estate investor from your military experience?
Unfortunately, yes. That's I was not. When I say unfortunately, I don't mean it that way. When I went into the military, I was a young kid. I was not very procedural based. But when people give you standard operating procedures, that this is the way you make your bed, and there's no other way to make your bed. They're angled this way. This is the way it is. Take a quarter, bounce it off of it. These are things that you're given that you have to perform. This is what it takes to do that. So it's just interesting that I can still take that same procedure and apply that in just a simplistic way of saying, if you want to run your rental properties, if you want to buy a rental property, here's what you look for. Once you buy it, if you want to find a tenant, here's the procedure that you look for. Once you have a tenant and you want to maintain them and you want to make money in real estate, here's how you treat the tenant. Here's how you do things. And once you put all this stuff together, it becomes a rental landlord system that people can utilize with just small little procedures that are easy to follow. So I would have to say, yes, the military has affected me, and there are procedures and checklists and all that other kind of good stuff about how to handle rentals.
Well, and I think it's just so important that you use the phrase that I love as well, standard operating procedure. Mm-hmm. And if you have a very systematic standard operating procedure, you can get incredible results. Part of what I think not only real estate agents, real estate investors, and entrepreneurs often do is they kind of just muck about with no real direction and not with even a checklist or a standard operating procedure. I was down in the islands and I got to see a pilot who was doing the checklist for this. It was a small little 8-seater plane. Mm-hmm. And I got to sit co-pilot, which I like sitting co-pilot. And I was watching him do his checklist, and it made me think, the more we actually had to do the checklist every single time and we didn't skip it, the more I think we would have standard results, or we would see exactly where the problem is on what was either missed or what needs to be improved. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And that's take your pilot. I mean, right now, they've probably seen that checklist 1,000 times. They probably looked through that checklist 1,000 times. Every flight they go through, they pull that clipboard out and they look at that checklist again. The whole point of the checklist is just to make sure you don't miss anything, because that one thing you miss can be disastrous. Mm-hmm. That's why you do it. And that's why even when you buy a rental property, that's why you follow certain procedures, because you want to make sure you don't miss anything. Because if you miss it, that can mean the difference between potentially making money or losing money on this particular rental. So definitely do your checklist.
So tell us a little bit about your market right now. Do you feel like it is a good market for investing in rentals?
Well, right now, of course, with just COVID and everything else going on, it kind of gave landlords a black eye this year, just with the government coming in and sort of putting some restrictions on what people can do. And now there've become a lot of financial distress with even people who are landlords, because maybe they weren't trained well enough on how to handle this type of predicament, or maybe their property managers didn't know. So basically they're in kind of a pickle, but our market is just smoking hot. I mean, out of all the stuff going on, I can't believe it. You cannot almost keep rental properties on the market. You throw them on the market. If it's a decent property, you're going to get an offer on it. I mean, it may not be the offer you're looking for, depending on the condition of the property. But if it's a solid property and it's rented and so forth, people are putting offers on them. I mean, I'm a real estate broker in our area, so we sell the rental properties that our clients are looking to sell and get out of. So I'm in the middle of that. So absolutely, we see a lot of offers coming through, finance offers, cash offers. It doesn't really matter. So we're converting properties to just regular residential homes. We just, I think, closed last week on just an FHA loan for somebody who's moving into a property that we used to rent. So it's not just cash buyers, but I mean, it's FHA buyers. It's all people out there buying market. St. Louis is smoking.
Well, Washington, D.C. is smoking hot as well. We're also seeing multiple offers, cash offers, all sorts of different things. But Virginia, D.C., I'm licensed in all three as a real estate agent.
Awesome.
I think it's good. I like it because I really like staying in touch. I still even love, after 24 years of this, I still love the first time home buyer, because I love helping them create those basic and foundational things that so often are missed when somebody goes through the first time home buying process and they're just like, I don't even know what happened, but I signed a bunch of documents. But again, like you talked about, what are the mistakes that you make if you don't actually go back to the basics? And it can cost you a lot of money. And I think, as you just said, the coronavirus pandemic has put a lot of landlords in a stressful situation. But if you buy right, and if you've gone through your checklists, I think that you can prevent some of the disasters that other people who they had too fine of a line between profit and obviously cash flow and expenses and all the other things that you need to be taking into consideration. So I'm curious, so you're unusual in that I don't see too many, there are not a whole bunch of us. There are some, but a question that comes up a lot of times for me, I've heard this so many times, is if I want to become a real estate investor, do I have to get my real estate license? So what would you answer to that?
No, right now there are so many other ways that you can get into real estate. I mean, without having to learn anything, you can actually, if you see some of these big wholesalers or rehabbers that are in the area, simply go talk to them. I mean, one thing that people forget about is just a simple thing called a bird dog. I mean, a bird dog is sort of a term that people use to go out and find a property specifically for people, and they'll pay you a profit for doing that. I mean, these aren't like deals that you have to have signed. These could be, you go out and you drive neighborhoods and just get for sale by owner signs. You write down the address, the phone number, and write down some other information and pass it along to them, and they give you money for it. Or you drive around and find out which property looks not condemned, but high grass and
right.
Just paper up on the doors, notices and stuff like that. Just make a note of those addresses for distressed properties, and you pass those along to people. You can start in real estate as easy as that, and the people will teach you how to do that. But as far as getting your license, no. I mean, right now, sometimes, depending on what you do, it might actually be advantageous to not have your license to do that, because as a real estate agent, now you're legally bound to do other obligations and other disclosures that you wouldn't have if you weren't. So sometimes it could be easier to do real estate without a license. But right now, with what I do, I need a license. That's what I would definitely say. No, you don't need it. There are so many ways that you can get into real estate. You just have to have a desire, and you have to be able to hustle.
Yeah. And I think there's so many different ways to do real estate investing. You just use the bird dog term, which I love, because a lot of people talk about wholesaling. And again, I'm amazed on how many people don't understand what wholesaling is. Would you do a little bit, put on your coaching hat and help anyone who's listening who might be interested in doing wholesaling? It's another way that you can get into real estate investing for little to no money, right?
Correct. So, okay, let's kind of put on the wholesaling hat here. And I'm trying to keep things very simplistic and very basic. The whole thing that you're trying to do as a wholesaler is you're trying to find somebody that's looking to sell a house, and all you're doing is agreeing on a certain price. Now, before we get into agreeing on a price and everything else, there has to be an underlying understanding of how you price a particular property. So that kind of goes back beyond the scope of this to how do you evaluate properties? What are some of the tools that you need? But believe it or not, those tools are free and online for you to be able to sort of guesstimate of what properties are going for. But all you're doing is talking to people that want to sell their house. Sometimes you really want to talk to people that need to sell their house. That's the difference. If they want to sell their house, they may not be very motivated. If they need to sell their house, like, unfortunately, oh my God, my father died. I don't know what to do with this stuff. I mean, I just want to get rid of this thing because I don't want to even bother with it. Those are the people that you're like, yes, let me go talk to you. But all you're doing is talking to them, getting a price for the property, maybe even getting a simple one-page contract to purchase the property. And all you're doing is just simply then going out and finding somebody else that's looking to buy that property and pay you more than what you have it under contract for. That's really about it. Now, here's the good thing about what I said earlier. If you're already working with other wholesalers, rehabbers in the area, these people will, in a sense, if you talk to them beforehand, they will mentor you. They are looking for people like you to give them deals, and they will easily give you thousands of dollars for this process of doing this. Now, finding a deal, getting all this stuff under contract, speaking to somebody can be done in hours. I mean, literally 1 to 2 hours worth of actually speaking to somebody, getting it under contract. And then next thing you know, you're making one phone call to a buyer that you know is interested. They're going to give you whatever you paid for it, plus $5,000, or take your pick, whatever it's worth, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. And you make that for just a few hours worth of work. And your job is just to go out and find more of those deals and keep sending them to the person that's going to keep buying them from you. And it's really just that simple, but you do have to learn some underlying principles and techniques, but there's a lot of information out there about how to begin wholesaling.
So we really went over a lot in this episode. We started with, not only being a landlord and buying properties, but also property management and, what you do with your company with property management in St. Louis, but then also talked about, being a bird dog, which is a neat way to get into real estate investing with basically no money. That's a great technique, but also one of the other ones is wholesaling that you just talked about. And I guess part of it was, I love showing that it's possible. It is possible if you want to be a real estate investor in any market, even in the middle of a health pandemic. We can always find a way, and there's always options out there. And there are people like you who will put on your coaching hat, and you're willing to help and you're willing to teach. So will you share with people how can they learn more about what you do, and even your social media, website, anything you want to share?
Sure. Well, my name is Edward O'Daniel. Just search for it. You can find me at just facebook.com/Edward O'Daniel or Edward O'Daniel page, depending upon which one you're hitting. We also have an education training company called veteranlandlord.com. So that's where we teach people, and we have some basic info products on all the forms, documents that you'll need to become a successful landlord, and video instructions about how to take care of it. And we give you a ton of resources. Matter of fact, Rich Dad Poor Dad ebook, our audio book is available. We offer that, and I want to give that along with a couple of other exciting things. And there's a ton of stuff that you get for just $100. And I mean, it's well worth it for just the bundle that we give you. But check out our YouTube channel, veteranlandlord.com. We love to just take out video. It's about helping people about how to evaluate deals, how to make more money as a landlord, charging for things that you normally would do for free, but you would say, if I told you about it, you'd be like, wow, I could charge for that. And just simple things like that, because believe it or not, as a landlord, $100, $200 a month per property can really make a difference. I mean, that can make a huge difference to make up for the time that you spend on that. But right now, one of the other things I'd love to be able to give people is, if you're interested in investing in real estate, go find an established wholesaler or rehabber in your area and offer them your services for free. Offer them the ability to work for them at no cost. And all you want them to do is just to help train you on what it's going to take for that. They would be more than happy to be available for you to sit back and train you. But you do need to go out and be a bird dog, drive, look for deals. Maybe they have properties that they need you to go take pictures of. So you can do work for them for free. In exchange, they give you education, and then they can end up buying your first deal. And then once you grow large enough and start doing your first deals, then you can grow beyond them. But it's a way to get started for free to no cost other than your time.
Well, and I think it's great that you give back. And also, like you said, you have to go and actually do the work. Like the old saying, you can't hire someone else to do your push-ups and expect to have your body in shape. Although I would pay a lot of money if I didn't have to do my own push-ups. But I think that that's one of the lessons as a real estate investor is find somebody else who can help you and teach you and mentor you, just like you heard from Edward in the fact that you want to learn from his mistakes. He made mistakes on his very first deal. Learn from those mistakes. You don't have to repeat those. You can make your own. I mean, you can keep on learning. And again, you can share your stories as you go through your journey. So Edward, thank you so much for being with us today. Yay!
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. And we'll be back. For the next episode, we're always looking for amazing topics. I can't wait to help you with whatever you need. And as I say every single time, find a way to make someone else smile. I am Jennifer Hammond.
Hi, I'm Jack Canfield. You may know me as the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And if you want more help in getting from where you are to where you want to be, I want to encourage you to listen to the Jennifer Hammond Show